Yes, me too.
I have them.
Okay, Gary will help you.
Okay, Dr. Katie, will you be the one saying it or will we be the one to present it?
Nope, looks like it. Can you see those?
Are they currently screen sharing? Oh, kita harus capture dulu.
Can you see them?
Okay, yes, we can see it, Dr. Katie.
Great, then I will do it.
Very well. Well then, I think we're still waiting until 9:20, so 10 to 15 more minutes, and then we can start with the session.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put some things in the chat.
Kayaknya mesti ngadep kamera dikit. Ini kameranya di sini soalnya. Jadi biar Katie lihat dulu. Enggak, bentar aja ngobrol bentar aja. Katie, hi
Yes.
Katie. Hi Katie. Just want to introduce you before we start.
Okay.
Before we start, I would like to introduce you to our moderator here. She is one of our faculty member from Psychology department. This is Farah.
Hello, I'm Farah. I'm going to be your moderator today.
Oh, wonderful. Nice to
Okay,
meet
great. Nice to meet you too.
Yeah. And also Nirasha. Oh, we've met. You already met. Oh,
Yes.
10 minutes ago. So
thank you, thank you, thank you, Mbak Nirasha. Thank you, Katie. Already met Aysha. The another speaker. She's my student. She would be share about her thesis examination, final examination about grief and loss.
All right.
hi, Miss Kathy. Nice to meet you.
Oh, nice
Yeah.
to meet you.
Yeah, so Farah will introduce all of the speakers, and then she will arrange the talk. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Mana dulu, Gary dulu.
Ya, 9:20 ya, Mbak. Ya, 10 menit lagi. Udah ada berapa yang online? Udah ada berapa orang yang online? 118, oke. 18 orang yang online. Ya, emang mahasiswa BINUS kayak gitu. Kamu boleh tuh. Oh iya. Bantu buat ya oleh ada yang di luar. Enggak, mungkin di sini kan nanti lihat chatnya. Apabila ada pertanyaan ngomong aja ya. Yuk ada 3. Kita mulai sekarang aja kegiatannya. Ya.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. We are delighted to welcome you to today's event titled Alun-alun Psychologi BINUS, where we highlight the theme, Embracing Change as a Catalyst for Growth. It's a pleasure to see so many new faces here as we come together for an inspiring and enriching experience. Now, before we continue, you might recognize me, some of you may not know me, but it'd be best for me to introduce myself. My name is Faral Gibran Firmansyah. You may call me Faral. You may also call me Tonight. Okay. Okay, moving on. As you may be able to tell, today's event is all about psychology, designed to inspire, challenge, and expand your horizons as we dive into 3 dynamic segments. Now, what are those segments, you might be wondering? First, we have research sharing, where groundbreaking psychological research will be presented, offering fresh insights into the field. The second segment is titled Industry Sharing, where professionals will share their real-world experience and how psychology is shaping various industries. And lastly, but not least, is Psychology Sharing, a deep dive into practical application of psychology in everyday life. We also have an incredible lineup of speakers and activities that are sure to leave you with valuable insights and inspiration. Are you guys excited? I can't quite hear you. Are you guys excited? That's weird. All right. Okay, sounds enticing, doesn't it? Now, before we start, this event would not be possible if not for these 2 important figures in our psychology department. So first off, let us hear an opening speech by Mr. Gary Collins Bratawinardi as the head laboratory of psychology, Kemanggisan. Kak Gary, please take the stage.
First of all, I'd like to welcome all of you, especially Dr. Kathy Eastman and Ms. Nirasha Darusman from EKR International and EKR Indonesia. This event primarily began as a way to connect from us academia to the field of research, to the field of practitioner, and also to the field of industry. We believe that academia should not exist as its own thing, but no, we should connect with everything. And you should know that as a student, you will enter other worlds soon. You cannot stay student forever, you will change. And we also need to be ready to face the change to make you become a better version of yourself. And for that and more reason, we are holding this Alun-alun, from Indonesian word that means town plaza. We want to make everyone meet together in an egalitarian space where we are equal to talk about what make us passionate the most, what drive us in this field of study. And so that's the tradition that we are doing back from last year, and we are continuing it today. Yep, I hope you all enjoy and have a good experience learning. Thank you very much. And I will give the floor to Miss Esther Widi.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Forgot to have to see the camera. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Oh, I love you, all my students. Love you. Because it is Saturday and you gotta have a Saturday night and you can call. No, no, that's not lowered. Okay, thank you for your coming. Thank you also for Mbak Nirasha, Mbak Eda, Aysha, Kak Farah, thank you. And also thank you, you are the guys online there. 1,000? No, 1,000? 100 and... Oh, 120. Thank you for the committee. Terima kasih panitia. Panitia, all still outside. Yeah, they're working very hard. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Prita. Thank you, Rira, and so on, and so on, and so on. This is the second Alun-alun Psikologi. And this moment is very great. So Gary talked a lot about what is Alun-alun. And we hope that you can take a very important lesson from this session, from this morning until this evening. And I don't know what I want to say anymore. Nothing, unless enjoy this session. Hopefully, you be just like how Rogers said, be growing, so you will be a happy person. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry.
Okay, thank you very much, Kak Gary and Dr. Esther. Everyone, please give one more round of applause. Now, after hearing those beautiful, words, I'm certainly inspired. I hope you're inspired. But just before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to give a special thank you to one of our amazing sponsors, Alpha Gift, for the generous support, as without their contribution, this event would not be possible. Now, to show our appreciation, let us watch this short teaser all about Alpha Gift that will be shown here on the screen. Okay, I guess we're leaving that segment for later. My apologies. We will get to see the segment later, all right? Now, okay, with that out of the way, without wasting any more time, let's dive right into the meat of today's program. I would like to introduce our distinguished moderator for today. As you previously met, we are incredibly honored to have Dr. Farah Mutiasari Jalal, PhD, who is a lecturer here at BINUS University, mental health activist in Hatiplong. Oh, sorry, my bad. And co-founder of Hatiplong. Yes. It's Hatiplong. Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah. And the one who will guide us throughout this event. So, Dr. Farah, we kindly invite you to proceed.
Okay, hello everyone. Good morning. I think I see some familiar faces over here. Are you guys my students or? Yes, some of them. Some of them who are lucky, actually. Okay. I'd like to welcome you to Alun-alun Psikologi BINUS with the theme of embracing change as a catalyst for growth. My name is Farah. I think you know me as Kak Farah, and you may not call me tonight. Okay. It's outside working hours, so you may not call me. Yeah. Okay. And I will be your moderator for today's session. Today's event is focused on the deeply significant topic of grief and mental health, and how we can transform the pain of loss into a catalyst to growth, healing, and resilience. And we are fortunate to have three incredible speakers with us. And our first speakers will be Dr. Kathy Eastman. Hello, good evening, Dr. Eastman. Is it evening over there?
It is. It
is.
is 7:30, almost 7:30. Yes.
Okay. It's your dinner time, actually.
It's after dinner. Yes.
Oh, after dinner. Okay. So you all are prepared and your tummy is full. That's good.
Tummy is full and I'm excited to be here.
That's great. That's great. Okay. I'll come back to you later. And joining her is Kak Nirasha Darusman. Is it okay to call you Kak or sis or Kak is okay, huh? Kak is perfect. And how are you today? That's great. Well, all happy to have you here. Okay. And lastly is one of our own alumni, Aysha. Hello, apa kabar? It's okay. You can mix the language, but don't be nervous, huh? Okay. Together, this speaker will guide us through their experience and insight, showing us how grief, while painful, can also lead to personal growth. So, let's begin with welcoming our first speaker, Dr. Kathy Eastman. So Dr. Eastman is a national grief and trauma therapist with over 30 years of experience. I don't think you were born yet at that time, huh? 30 years of experience. And as a licensed psychotherapist, social worker, and life coach, she specialized in supporting individuals and community through loss and transition. Drawing on her extensive work with people of all ages, she helped them navigate pain to find meaning and positive changes. Dr. Eastman studied under the renowned Dr. Kübler-Ross. I bet you're familiar with the Kübler-Ross theory, right? And which has profoundly shaped her career. So we're excited to have her share her insight today. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Kathy Eastman. Dr. Eastman, the floor is yours.
Thank you all so much. And I am going to get my slides up here. There they are. Okay, and slideshow. There it is. Okay, slideshow from the beginning. All right. Well, what a wonderful topic for all of you to begin to think about change and loss and how it can lead to growth. And my hope is that by the end of this evening, after all of our conversations, you will walk away with practical tools for whenever change happens or transition happens in your life, so that you can optimize your mental health and be the best you that you can be. And I have learned much of what you are going to hear from Dr. Kübler-Ross, who was my mentor. And one of the things that Elisabeth truly understood about loss and change leading to growth is it requires honoring your grief and honoring your experiences wholeheartedly, delving into what happens to you when you experience change or transition. Because inevitably, when there is change, there is loss. And where there is loss, there is grief. So with that, I will begin. So tonight's topic is all about mental health, as well as how it impacts and affects change. And one of the things that I want to say that Kübler-Ross was extremely adamant about is that each and every one of us have a right to mental health. And what keeps a lot of people from getting the support they need is their misunderstanding of the difference between mental health and mental illness. So for some of you, this may be quite basic and you may already know this, but it's good to know how to explain it to other people. So I'm going to just briefly go through these differences so that when someone approaches you with stigma, with, oh, mental health, no, I don't need that. There's nothing wrong with me. Remind them that you are not talking about mental illness. You are talking about a fundamental part of their human wellness. So how we think, how we feel, and how we behave are all about our mental health. And maintaining our mental, our physical, our spiritual, and our emotional well-being are vital to our wellness. And I want to repeat those because Elisabeth Kübler-Ross had a belief in what she called the 4 quadrants. Those 4 quadrants are that we are human beings with dimensions, mental dimensions, physical, spiritual, and emotional, and that each of them are equally important. And when we are impacted by change or transition or struggle or loss, all of them are affected. And understanding your experience from these 4 quadrants is essential to understanding your particular needs in adapting to what you're going through. And then just briefly, we understand that mental illness is a medical condition, and it is impacted with a different intensity and duration. So when you are describing mental health and mental illness to people, Remind them that one is a medical condition and one is a vital aspect of being a well human. So we're going to talk about two important aspects of mental illness that can impact people going through change, loss, and how they can be optimized to lead to growth. Remember that when people go through change, there are often losses. For example, when someone dies or when there is a serious loss of a relationship, there can be very intense difficulty with mental concentration, with thoughts, with depressive thoughts. They might have difficulty sleeping, fatigue. There might be a lack of motivation. Their spiritual meaningfulness in life may have gone away for a while. Their emotions, they might feel helpless or hopeless or worthless. Those are signs of clinical depression. When someone reaches that level, that is mental illness. That is not typical grief. That is not typical honoring of your and valuing of your experience of grief. Because oftentimes when people have grief experiences, they have periods of these symptoms, but they aren't lasting. They might come and go, they might come for a few weeks, but someone who is clinically depressed, you can understand that by the fact that they might be they might be attending a party. You might be going to a party with a bunch of your friends, and there's absolutely no reason for you not to be having fun and enjoying yourself. And yet you are depressed. That's clinical depression. So really important that you differentiate between these two, especially when it comes to grief. I have actually had a mother who lost a child. Someone tried to hospitalize her because they thought she was suicidal after the death of her child, when in reality, it was an extreme experience of her grief symptoms. And they did get better over time. So it's important to do your homework, to understand the difference. One lasts, one does not. And the intensity is very different. Anxiety. When we think of anxiety, we think of worry, restlessness, irritability, racing thoughts, catastrophic thinking. Some people can have panic attacks, increased heart rate, shortness of breath, muscle tension. Their hopelessness again. They're feeling that their life is not worthwhile anymore. Remember that this is generalized anxiety symptoms, and that is different than when someone like myself, before I did this presentation, my heart rate was beating a little bit faster. I might be worrying a bit. What if my slides don't work, but it doesn't last. In grief, oftentimes anxiety symptoms can be misunderstood because it's not uncommon during grief for it to manifest from the waist up physically. People can have chest pains. They can have intense heart rate. They can have breathing issues. They can have muscle aches. Women who lose children oftentimes experience muscle pain in their arms from their grief. So during times of intense change and loss, it's important to differentiate between mental illness and mental health symptoms. All right, so what are some of these losses that I'm talking about? Well, those of you, many of you are students, and one of your first losses was leaving home and going to a new place. And from that loss, from that experience, you started to experience this transition losses that were tangible and intangible. Some were tangible, financial changes, You might be using different technology. You might be going to a bigger city. You might be leaving relationships behind. But there are also intangible. And those are loss of confidence, loss of a sense of competence, loss of security, loss of stability. And each of these losses, regardless if they're tangible or intangible, come with grief, come with these physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental experiences. So I want you throughout this presentation to keep those in mind, those 4 quadrants, and think about these losses that you've incurred. You've had to make academic adjustments. You might be teaching might be different now. You might feel more academic pressure. The coursework may be more intense. You may have higher expectations of your work. You may experience the loss of confidence. I don't know any student who goes to college, university, who hasn't gone through that. But what they do with it is really important. And honoring it, valuing it, listening to it is what I'm going to be teaching you in a moment that Kübler-Ross provides in her change curve theory. Another loss, your separation from family and friends. Culture shifts. You're now thrown in with a group of people, some of whom might be very different from you. There might be different dialects. There might be different cultural understandings. You are in what we call here a melting pot of different kinds of people. Your social group may be very different than what you're used to. Navigating these differences in values, behaviors, and social norms may make you miss home, may make you miss the familiar. Those are experiences of loss. So what do you do about it? Well, that's the next step. The next step is recognizing that these losses are changes. And changes with a growth mindset requires a commitment, a choice. And I'm going to go through Carol Dweck's, who is a Stanford psychologist, her idea of how to define growth. A growth mindset, and I always simplify it by saying it's what can I do? What can I learn? What is very important for me to recognize needs to change in order for me to adapt and cope to this transition. And here are some of her ideas. Believe in the power of effort. Understand that hard work and perseverance do lead to success. Maybe not in your timeline, maybe not in the way that you most want it to, but eventually it does pay off. Embrace challenge. They view challenges as opportunities for learning. No matter what happens to you, it is an opportunity to learn how to be a better version of yourself. Learn from your setbacks. See failure as a valuable experience rather than a personal shortcoming. If something goes wrong, if you're struggling in class, if you're not getting a job, if you're wanting to see something change and it's not, do not automatically think it's because of something you're doing. Sometimes life happens and it has nothing to do with what you're doing. It has to do with a whole other list of people who are doing other things at that time. So remember that. Don't automatically believe you have done something wrong. Persist in the face of obstacles. One of my favorite sayings is make today better than yesterday. So I love it when people put an obstacle in front of me. I'm like, oh, show me, and I will figure out a way. I have determination and focus. I always have. Some people, they struggle with that. It's okay. We all have different strengths. Recognize what your strengths are and use those and optimize those. Get inspired by the success of others. Go online and start looking into what different people are doing that you want to do. How did they get there? What motivated them? What achievements have they achieved? And why and how? How did they get through the hard times? One of my favorite things to do is listening to podcasts of people going through challenges and struggles. And how did they develop that growth mindset? It's a choice. I'm going to say that again. It's a choice. A mindset of growth is a positive choice to learn from everything you do. So Elisabeth's change curve. Elisabeth wanted to offer the world an opportunity to look at change with the idea of humanizing it. We all go through changes. We all go through losses. And we all need to learn to cope with them in ways that maximize the quality of our life every day. And so she came up with these ideas of shock, denial, frustration, depression, experimentation, decision, and integration. Now, I'm just going to briefly go through these because you can use them whenever you go through change. I'm going to give you a case example. You are going to graduate, all of you, at some point, and you will be looking for a job. And inevitably, as every one of us can say, one of those times you will not get the job. You might come close, you might come really close, and something might happen. And automatically you start to feel excited in anticipation of, oh, I really want this. This would give me stability. This would get me going. This would get me out in the world. And then boom, something happens and it falls through. Then you would be inevitably, you would likely go through shock and denial. You would be like, no, this can't be happening. Oh, come on. No, I had this job. I did all these interviews. This cannot be. Your frustration would rise. You would be feeling possibly depressed. Now, if you become depressed to an extent, it may be because you're taking your anger and you're turning it inward and it's turning into depression instead of outwardly letting it out. Experimentation. That's when you start to say, okay, this happened. What can I learn from it? What do I value? What's important to me? What did I really want out of that job that I didn't get because I didn't get this job, but there's other jobs out there? That's when you start to experiment. Then you start to make more choices and you start going, oh, there's a big world out there. Let me try new things. And eventually you integrate it into a new trajectory, a new job, a new place, a new life, because you made that first choice to adapt to change with a growth mindset. So again, I'm going to go through the main issues that Elisabeth identified in the change curve. Denial is when you go, no, this can't be happening. This wasn't supposed to go that way. It's when our growth plans go a different direction. Anger, funding dried up. You lost the job, sales decline, anger, frustration. There are so many reasons why we don't get a job. You start blaming. Blame needs to be directed toward, I'm just angry, because sometimes there is no blame. Sometimes it's just economic conditions. Bargaining, when you start to go, oh, well, maybe if I do this, or I think about it this way, there's still a chance. And then when that falls through and you're still struggling, then you might get depressed. Always check in with yourself. If you are depressed, are you angry? And not giving yourself permission to express that anger. That is a common source of situational depression. And then eventually you'll redirect all of that energy into finding something new and being creative about, okay, I can't do this, but I can do this. And I've learned this about this. So I talked about this, finding a new job. You've interviewed for a job, with a promising startup. It's experiencing rapid growth. You get very excited. You think, yay, this is going to happen. But due to an unexpected downturn, the investor drops the funding. And all of a sudden, just before being hired, you're told the job is gone. Or in some situations, you may have the job and the job goes away. So practicing these change curve concepts can really help you navigate through those kinds of situations, which you will inevitably face. Again, so loss and change. You have had losses from the time you were born. Our very first loss is when our mother walks out of the room. Our losses begin when we start to want to eat and we can't. Our losses continue throughout our life whenever change either happens to us or we want change because we want to transition to a new level of growth. And that happens as you grow older. And as someone who is now 64, I will tell you that physical changes occur as you grow older that you don't necessarily want to have happen when they happen. But if there's one thought I'd like you all to really understand is life does not happen in a predictable fashion. And the sooner you learn to adapt to any change by allowing yourself to grieve those experiences by looking at those 4 quadrants, the mental, the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional quadrants, those 4 dimensions of your humanness, learning to experience those, to feel your feelings, to understand your beliefs, to adapt and cope by making new changes. That will end up by giving you the growth that you most want, which is to make a difference in the world, to feel like you are contributing, to feel good about yourself, to know that you are using your skills, your gifts, your talents to better the world. That is what true growth feels like. And it's wonderful, but it's not easy. And so what I want you to take from this experience today, from what I'm saying and what others are saying, is I will make the choice to grow from change and loss. So with that, I'd like to open to questions. I'm not sure how much time I have. Thoughts, questions? People can put them in the chat out loud.
We will take questions in the discussion session later, Dr. Eastman. So, and you still have how many more minutes?
Okay, well then I will continue talking.
2 more hours. I'm just joking.
No, I have some questions. So I want you to ask yourself some questions. And these are important questions for you to consider all the time whenever you face change. How well do you adapt to change? Do you like it? Do you resist it? Do you run from it? When I use the word grief, what do you think about? Do you consider yourself someone who understands how you grieve? Were you taught that it's okay to grieve? Were you taught that mental health is an important and fundamental aspect of being a well human? Ask yourself those questions. Now I want you to ask these questions whenever you face change. Your mental health check-in. Am I physically well? Do my thoughts reflect confidence and competence? Am I motivated and connected to my purpose? Are my emotions manageable or are they overwhelming? So those are questions, and the kinds of questions I want you to ask yourself on a regular basis. And one of the things that I did is I wrote a book about these kinds of questions. And I interviewed people and I wrote about people, real life people who I had worked with, who had gone through unimaginable loss. And in the book are questions about what we should ask ourselves or can ask ourselves to probe into our experiences and what we need to learn from each experience. So I encourage all of you to continue to ask questions about what can I learn? Where is my resistance to learning? Where does that come from? What am I afraid of? And where is the loss in this change? And that will open up so much learning for you, both personally and professionally, as you move through your lives. Okay, now I only have 4 minutes left, so I am going to end there. And this is where you can contact me.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Eastman. Please have a round of applause. That's a very interesting talk. And I learned a lot, actually. I hope you guys too. That is not about only, grieving is not only about loss, but it's also about changing. And it's totally up to you how to change that into a growth. It's your choice. You can do that, which what we just learned, with your growth mindset. So for those who just recently experiencing loss, what I mean by loss is not apparently loss is not only about losing your significant others, but it can also be like losing your pet, losing your opportunities. See it as a change and turn it into a growth. Right? Right, Dr. Islan?
Always change is always an opportunity to learn and grow.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great. That's great. Thank you, Dr. Eastman. Have another applause for Dr. Eastman. Okay, so now we're moving forward to our second speaker. But before that, I forgot to say the ground rules that we're going to have all the speakers presenting their experience, their theory, and then we will have a discussion session later which you can ask questions. So if you already have questions now for Dr. Eastman, please hold. I know that you really want to ask, but write it down first. You can ask later in the discussion session. Okay? Okay. So now our second speaker is Kak Nirasha Darusman. She's a consultant and partner in Impact Factory and the founder of grieftalk.id. Kak Nirasha also has a diverse background, having worked as a project management in the business development and also corporate culture consultancy. And in 2020, she founded grieftalk.id, a support group that provides both online and offline grief support for those who have lost loved ones, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. That's correct, yeah? She's also the author of Lost and Found, and we have the books here. So for those who ask questions later, might be able to win the book Lost and Found, the first grief memoir in Bahasa Indonesia, which reflect on her personal journey of loss. So we are honored to have her here today to share her personal and professional experience, particularly on those supporting those who have experienced significant loss. Please welcome our second speaker, Kak Nirasha.
Thank you, Kak Farah. So you call me Kak, I call you Kak
Sure.
as well. Thank you.
I think we have to explain to Dr. Eastman what Kak means.
All right, it's like
Older
sister in a very sisterhood kind of way. So, we're maybe already matured, but we really want, students to see us still young. So
Yeah. Menolak tua bahasa
yeah, menolak
Indonesia.
tua. So thank you Kak
Thank
Farah,
you.
thank you Dr. Farah. Again, thank you for having me. Terima kasih teman-teman. Semoga semua sudah sarapan karena ini Sabtu pagi. Oh belum. Aku minta maaf ya. Semoga setelah ini bisa mengisi perut, maybe nanti after lunch. So thank you for having me. So as you can see, today I'm going to talk about navigating loss and change, the impact of support groups in Indonesia. Of course, I am here because of Gary and Mbak Esther. So thank you so much. Thank you for contacting me. Thank you for having me. It's an honor. And of course, I'm here because I'm part of the Elisabeth Kübler-Ross Foundation. I'm the advisory council for Indonesia. So it's truly an honor for me to be here because unlike all of you here, I don't have any major in psychology, but maybe one of the thing that makes me here kenapa saya ada di sini because I'm a grief survivor. Yes, you read it right. Mungkin bertanya-tanya, maybe you ask what is a grief survivor? So I have survived the greatest loss in my life. So this is my family. As you can see, this is a wall in my house. And there are 4 photos, the picture of my mom and my dad and my 2 brothers. So I lost them in 2007 until 2014. It was the darkest moment in my life, obviously. And at the time, as we know, we didn't talk about mental health the way we talk about mental health right now because of the COVID and everything, right? So I felt so alone. And we were a tight-knit family. So when each and every one of them die in front of me, I was like, okay, why this happened to me? I felt like I was a victim. And that is normal. When you lost somebody that is very significant to you, you will think that you are a victim. So that's where I think that this experience has changed me a lot. I was a victim. Maybe I am the victim, but I can do something about it. I can try to make things better. And actually, this experience made me a better person. Because, okay, conclusion, maaf ya, baru slide ketiga kok ada conclusion. Conclusion, what I meant was, my conclusion when losing the people that is very significant to me in the course of 7 years, because now I'm all alone. I don't have any siblings. I don't have any parents anymore, even though, yes, I have a wonderful husband, 2 daughters, and they are great. But still, there's a hole in my heart, and that will never go away. And that's the thing about grief, and that's the thing about loss. So the conclusion is, first, I really believe that I will grieve forever. Okay. Jangan kaget teman-teman, maksudnya bukan, it doesn't mean that you will cry forever, no, but you will miss them forever in your life. You will miss them, especially birthdays, important days. You will always miss them. There will be no special days without thinking of, how if they're still here with us. So my first conclusion is I will grieve forever. And the second one is because grief is love. Grief is actually the extension of love. When you love a person that much, that means you're going to grieve that much as well. So when that person die, and then you still have that love, you will have that grief. The love will transform into grief. And that's why my conclusion is grief is actually love. But then I also conclude that support system is very crucial because you will grieve forever, you will miss them forever, and then as long as I live, as long as I breathe, I will still have love for them. That means forever I will be grieving. That means forever I will be needing support group. Of course, I can rely on my husbands and my husband, not husbands, my husband and my kids, but it's not fair, right? So I thought maybe I am going to build my own support group. So that's why Grief Talk was born in 2020. So I founded Grief Talk in 2020, actually, not because I want to help people. No. I needed to help myself. Really, I needed to help myself because I know, as I said it before, because I know I cannot always rely on my circle, my number one circle. That's not fair to them. And learning from other countries who have support groups, I think maybe we should have support groups in Indonesia. And then, so I founded the Grief Talk. But obviously, I really want this group, back a little. Maaf ya, I'm sorry, Dr. Katie. There's okay. Technology also needs time. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay, and this is why I built the Grief Talk, the support group. I want this support group to be a place where you can share, where you can feel like this is a safe space to share about anything. And this is a non-judgmental place. Like, there's no right, there's no wrong. You can cry, you can be mad, you can do whatever, and then we will say nothing. We will just be your best listener, because that's all we need. That's all I need at the moment. And then I hope that Grief Talk can also be a comfort for you, because, because we listen to you, and then hopefully you can also have connection with people who have the same experiences. And also, yang paling penting adalah confidentiality. We really try to be as confidential as possible, because this is personal story. So these are the things that we really keep. Also, another reason, not only because I needed the support group, but because of the COVID. So I am not I'm an introvert. So thinking of, doing something with strangers and then making them comfortable to say anything to you, that's like very unlikely. But when COVID hits, I really think it's not about me anymore. It's about them, because, we really felt it. It was people die left and right like crazy at the time, and we didn't have the vaccine yet. So I really think that, okay, if you want to have a support group, this is the time. So at the time, I manage myself, I keep myself together, and let's just do it. And we had the Zoom, the first Zoom on December 10th, 2020. So that was the first time. And this is the second reason why I founded the Grief Talk. And then, this is also a shocking number, but also a very big reason. Because more than 160 people died. That means at least 160 people grieved, right? But it could be more, because when one people die, at least 2 or 3 people are grieving for that person. So, so many people will need the support system. And of course, when the death is sudden, it's traumatic, it's, it could lead to prolonged grief disorder. So this is why the support system, the support group is also needed. And that's another reason why I founded this Grief Talk. And then that's what we did. 2020 to 2021, we managed to do the support group once a month, every month. And then I started to think about something else because there are many misconceptions about grief. There are many misconceptions about the 5 stages. And then I thought, maybe I can use this platform for educating people. So in 2021, we started the social media. So you can, you guys can check the grieftalk.id. This is what we've done so far. We have contents about, we have information about grief. This is just some examples. We talk about finding ways to cope grief. And then we talk about terjebak dalam duka, ini tanda-tandanya. Are you stuck in grief? This is the sign. And then we also talk about, this is Malam Minggu Bercerita. So we also give a space for anyone who wants to share their stories. Because, sharing is healing. And listening or reading other people's stories is also healing. So that's what we try to do as well. And then, of course, I really want to use this platform to talk more about the 5 stages, because actually the 5 stages is one of the things that helped me go through my grief when I first lost my little brother in 2007. So I know that Dr. Elisabeth Kübler-Ross first talked about this theory in her first book in 1969. The book was on death and dying. And I just spoke to Aysha, and then she said that in psychology major, you actually learn the stage of dying first, right? But for me, from outside of psychology, we don't know that. We heard about the 5 stages of grief and not the 5 stages of dying. So not many people know that it started from the 5 stages of dying, where Dr. Elisabeth Kübler-Ross talked about the terminally ill patients, right? Not the people who's losing their families. So it's quite different, but not many people know about that. So that's what we're trying to educate people from our social media. So we try to educate people, we try to give information to our readers and our community members about Dr. Elisabeth Kübler-Ross as well. These are the examples. And so far, our journey, we have done more than 70 meetings, and then we have maybe collectively more than 2,000 people have came to our meetings. And then that number converted into 280 people who have joined our WhatsApp group, because there they can talk about anything, they can trash, they can rant, they can whatever, no judgment, and they don't have to wait for the meeting to happen. So that's what we're trying to do. And then we also have made our Instagram followers without any, we don't buy followers like that. So it's very organic. So actually, that means it's working. And this is what they say, what people say about our community. Grief Talk is not just a place to share sad stories of loss, but it has become my path to healing, treating all the wounds from the departures of my father, mother, sister, and daughter. Grief Talk also became the place where I finally embraced the motto of my beloved football club, Liverpool, "You'll never walk alone." In this journey of grief, I found not just solace, but a powerful sense of community and the realization that in the darkest of time, we're never truly alone. And I met her in our meeting, and we became friends. And now she's one of the team in our Grief Talk. Ega is here with me. And she's the person behind the content in social media. So she's the content girl. She's like, I don't know what to do without her. And we also have other stuff from other people, and this is anonymously because not everybody wants to reveal their ID. Yes, I do. I would like to say happy third birthday. Oh yeah, this happens last year when we had our third anniversary. And please stay amazing. Grief Talk ID, terima kasih sudah menjadi tempat ternyaman saat bercerita tentang perjalanan kedukaan dan berbagi ilmu untuk bertahan hidup dalam menghadapi kehilangan orang yang sangat berarti dalam hidup aku. Okay. Thank you for always being a place I can call home, a place to appreciate my stories, a place to get validations for my feelings, and a place where I feel like a human by feeling whatever I'm feeling. And then, yeah, there are words of inspirations for us. And of course, the one that really, really get me is the one that is simple, and the one that I can never thought that I can be that. Thank you, Grief Talk, for making me strong, because I never thought that I can help people like that. I just wanted to help myself, but then I apparently I also help other people. So that's Grief Talk, and this is our team. I'm not alone. I can never do this alone. You have met Mega Anissa, and then Jihan and Sarah is my co-founders. Actually, Sarah is a clinical psychologist from Universitas Pajajaran. So she's in the research team. So whenever we want to share about content about education information, we always go to her to make sure that everything is right. And then there's Jurika, and then there's Rafael. So, okay, this is the real one. This is not just conclusion. This is the real conclusion. In almost 4 years, I've been with the grief survivors, and I've been with myself as well. My conclusion, number one, is that validation. When you grieve, you need validation. If you don't get the validation from other people, it's okay. You validate yourself. You acknowledge every feelings that you have. You acknowledge that you are experiencing through something, and this is not good. This sucks maybe, but it's okay. You validate, you acknowledge that feelings. That's my first conclusion. And the second one is knowledge. And then you find out what do you need to do with whatever you have that. Because, informations are everywhere now. You can get information anywhere. So find out, make yourself resourceful by trying to find the knowledge. And then the second one, that will lead to growth. Because I would not be standing here without losing my 4 loveliest people in my life. I would not be here, even though that sucks, but I'm here because of them, and that's growth. And I think that's also why I'm thanking you, BINUS, because the psychology major, you really think about the future of mental health, and we really need this. I mean, mental health is like the future of the world. And that's why, we have that connection. I'm so into mental health. I don't study psychology, but maybe I will. But that's what we have in common. So I'm thanking you, because we really need to talk about mental health more seriously. So let's do the work. Thank you so much for having me. And hopefully we can chat more later. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we should be the one who thanking you, Kak Nirasha, for being there, for creating the support group, for being for all of us, like the society. I think that what you did, it's so great. So
Thank you.
now we know that for those again who just experiencing loss, doesn't matter what, you're not alone. Now we
Yes.
know there's a grief talk. There's Kak Nirasha, where you can always come and
Yes.
tell all your stories.
You are never alone. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank
So,
you.
Another applause. All right. So now, lastly, not but not least, we honored to welcome our own alumni, Aysha, who will share her personal and academic journey. And Aysha thesis explored the topic of grief, a subject that she understands deeply as she faced the loss of her thesis supervisor, Dr. Rani Agias Fitri. Dr. Fitri, so Mbak Rani, battled with cancer, and her pacing shaped not only Aysha academic work, but also her personal understanding of loss. So, have applause for our own alumni, Aysha. The floor is yours.
Halo, selamat pagi semuanya. Oke, sebelumnya aku mau makasih dulu buat pihak jurusan karena udah ngizinin aku untuk sharing terkait topik penelitian skripsi aku yang berkaitan dengan bagaimana kita, terutama di fase emerging adulthood tuh bisa menghadapi perubahan. Nah, ngomongin soal perubahan nih, perubahan tuh udah jadi bagian dari kehidupan kita ya. Emang kadang rasanya tuh bisa aja menyenangkan, tapi bisa juga sebaliknya. Apalagi kalau kita tuh harus berhadapan sama situasi yang sulit, kayak kehilangan sesuatu. Nah, tentang kehilangan nih, wajar ya kalau kita tuh punya berbagai emosi dalam diri kita. Apalagi kalau orang tersebut sangat berharga buat kita, atau mungkin barang juga ya. Dan mungkin rasa sedih dan kedukaannya itu jauh lebih dalam. Bahkan Stroop menyebutkan bahwa kehilangan orang yang kita cintain itu bisa mempengaruhi kondisi mental dan juga fisik. Dan hal ini tuh bisa terjadi pada siapapun di berbagai rentang kehidupan, nggak terkecuali pada emerging adulthood. Atau biasanya tuh masa pencarian identitas diri kita ya. Ada di rentang usia 18 sampai 25 tahun, di mana kita tuh lagi sibuk-sibuknya kuliah, kerja, atau mungkin menata masa depan. Ya, bayangin aja teman-teman lagi ada di posisi ini, tapi tiba-tiba harus mengalami kehilangan seseorang yang berarti buat teman-teman. Pasti rasanya tuh berat ya, karena kita tuh juga lagi belajar buat mengelola emosi kita. Servatisip dan Hamilton itu menyebutkan bahwa mahasiswa yang berduka termasuk dalam kelompok yang berisiko mengalami dampak buruk pasca kehilangan. Jadi mungkin di awal-awal kita kehilangan orang itu rasanya tuh sedih dan berat banget. Tapi seiring berjalannya waktu, intensitasnya tuh bakal berkurang. Kalau menurut Kessler, ada anggapan kita tuh harus selesai dengan kedukaan dalam 1 tahun. Tapi nggak bisa dibilang benar juga secara sepenuhnya. Karena duka itu sifatnya personal dan pasti setiap orang pengalamannya tuh beda-beda ya. Bisa jadi di satu waktu kita udah ngerasa fine-fine aja, tiba-tiba di waktu lain kita bisa ngerasa sedih dan juga kehilangan lagi. Ya emang ini tuh hal yang wajar, tapi teman-teman tuh tahu kan kalau segala sesuatu yang berlebihan tuh nggak baik. Ya begitu juga dengan berduka teman-teman. Kalau misalnya nggak kita kelola dengan baik dan kita biarin berkepanjangan, itu bisa berdampak buruk buat diri kita nantinya. Jadi sekarang gimana sih caranya kita bisa mengatasi hal ini dengan cara yang positif tentunya supaya kita tuh bisa melanjutkan hidup sebaik mungkin. Kayak yang tadi udah dijelasin sekilas ya oleh Kak Nirasha dan juga Miss Kathy, kalau ada 5 stage of grief yang dikemukakan oleh Elisabeth Kübler-Ross dalam bukunya On Grief and Grieving bersama Kessler. Ada denial, anger, bargaining, depression, dan juga acceptance. Jadi mungkin di awal-awal kita kehilangan orang tersebut, kita tuh seringkali diliputi sama berbagai pertanyaan dalam diri kita. Kayak, kenapa sih harus orang ini yang pergi lebih dulu? Kenapa harus hal ini yang menimpa aku? Atau banyak hal lainnya. Tapi seiring berjalannya waktu, kita tuh mulai bisa menemukan jawaban dan akhirnya bisa menerima apa yang terjadi. Terus setelah beberapa tahun, Kessler tuh menyadari bahwa ternyata ada satu tahapan penting buat proses penyembuhan orang yang berduka. Yaitu adalah makna. Jadi kita tuh membuat makna atas apa yang terjadi di hidup kita Dan menemukan makna itu tersendiri, ini tuh bisa dilakukan dengan banyak cara. Misalnya, kita bisa mengenang almarhum dengan cara yang positif, menghargai hidup kita saat ini, menghargai momen yang pernah dilalui dengan almarhum, atau bahkan kita juga bisa belajar buat menjadi lebih baik lagi. Perlu dicatat kalau emang ini tuh nggak menjamin rasa sedih kita bakal hilang sepenuhnya, tapi seenggaknya bisa membantu kita buat ngelihat pengalaman tersebut jadi lebih bermakna. Oke, pertama-tama sebelum ini aku mau nanya dulu, di antara yang ada di sini nih, ada nggak sih yang tahu lagu Gala Bunga Mataharinya Sal Priadi? Ada yang nggak tahu, karena semua tahu. Oke, mungkin banyak yang tahu ya, tapi bisa jadi ada yang belum tahu juga, karena ya, tapi lagunya viral sih teman-teman. Jadi lagu ini tuh kan menggambarkan kerinduan kita pada seseorang yang sudah nggak ada. Nah, nah, terus aku mau ngasih denger sedikit penggalan dari lirik lagu ini.
Yang masih ada di setiap waktu, kadang aku menangis bila aku perlu.
Jadi kan juga Sal Priadi bilang ya, kalau kita tuh mungkin bisa aja ngerasa kangen dan juga nangisin almarhum gitu di waktu-waktu tertentu. Tapi yang penting tuh gimana kita bisa belajar buat menerima dan juga akhirnya bisa berdamai sama keadaan. Jadi ya daripada kita fokus sama rasa sakit yang kita alamin, kita tuh perlu belajar buat menghargai momen dengan almarhum dan kita juga bisa menemukan tujuan baru di hidup kita. Oke. Sekarang aku mau cerita sedikit tentang penelitian aku yang pastinya berkaitan sama topik tadi. Yes. Ini foto aku dan almarhum abi aku. Jadi ini tuh terinspirasi dari pengalaman pribadi aku ya. Dimana sekitar 4 tahun yang lalu, kondisi aku bisa dibilang lagi kurang stabil. Dan aku sangat bergantung sama beliau waktu itu. Tapi ternyata aku harus kehilangan beliau juga di waktu itu. Jujur rasanya berat banget dan sedih karena beliau itu orang yang sangat berharga buat aku dan dari kecil aku sangat dekat sama beliau. Jadi pas ditinggal tuh rasanya kayak aku nggak punya semangat buat ngapa-ngapain dan kosong gitu. Kayak ada lubang. Oke, tapi mau gimana pun aku sadar kalau hidup kita tuh harus terus dijalanin apapun kondisinya. Jadi aku mencoba buat bangkit pelan-pelan dan menjalani tanggung jawab aku, menjalani hidup aku sebaik mungkin dan alhamdulillah akhirnya aku bisa mulai menerima keadaan aku. Ya, aku tuh sadar kalau kehilangan ini tuh berdampak besar akhirnya ke hidup aku. Dari segi diri dan juga mungkin hubungan aku sama orang lain. Makanya aku tuh pengen lebih memahami gimana sih dengan memaknai kematian orang yang kita cintain itu bisa membantu meredakan kedukaan kita dan juga membantu kita buat bertumbuh. Maka dari itu fokus penelitian aku adalah untuk mengetahui bagaimana peran meaning making dalam memprediksi intensitas duka pada emerging adulthood yang kehilangan orang terdekat. Dan di sini aku punya asumsi bahwa seseorang yang mampu menciptakan makna atas kehilangan yang dialami itu intensitas kedukaannya cenderung lebih rendah. Dan di sini variabel yang aku bahas itu ada 2. Yang pertama adalah duka dan yang kedua adalah meaning making sebagaimana yang udah aku jelaskan sebelumnya ya. Dan untuk kuesionernya aku sebar secara online dan mendapatkan partisipan sekitar 229 orang yang berada di fase emerging adulthood dan mengalami kehilangan orang terdekatnya dalam 2 tahun terakhir. Terus untuk metode penelitiannya aku pakai kuantitatif non-eksperimen dengan desain korelasional prediktif. Dan untuk menganalisis 2 variabel tadi aku pakai analisis regresi sederhana. Hasil analisisnya menunjukkan bahwa meaning making itu berperan secara negatif dalam memprediksi intensitas duka. Yang artinya semakin tinggi kemampuan meaning making partisipan, maka semakin rendah intensitas duka mereka. Tapi kayak yang bisa dilihat di sini, kalau kontribusinya terhadap duka itu hanya 8%. Yang artinya masih banyak sisanya itu masih bisa dijelaskan oleh variabel lain ya. Oke. Dan kayak yang kita tahu, kalau di dunia ini tuh emang gak ada yang sempurna. Sama halnya kayak penelitian yang aku lakuin. Jadi mungkin kalau di antara teman-teman di sini ada yang mau meneliti hal serupa, atau lagi mau melakukan penelitian skripsi, ada beberapa saran dari aku yang mungkin teman-teman bisa pertimbangkan. Untuk yang pertama tadi, udah aku jelasin kalau sekitar 92% berarti itu bisa dijelaskan oleh variabel lain. Jadi mungkin nanti teman-teman bisa mempertimbangkan buat angkat aspek dukungan sosial, budaya, dan juga kepercayaan yang pastinya tuh melekat di masyarakat Indonesia, dan bisa jadi nilai-nilai yang dipegang itu berpengaruh terhadap kedukaan seseorang dan cara dia memaknai kehilangan. Dan kedua, untuk teknik sampling itu aku pakai non-probability sampling. Yang sayangnya menurut aku sih kurang representatif. Jadi mungkin nanti teman-teman tuh bisa coba explore teknik sampling lainnya kayak probability sampling dan tentuin mana yang paling cocok untuk penelitian teman-teman nanti supaya hasilnya itu bisa merepresentasikan populasi yang dituju. Dan terakhir untuk pendekatan penelitiannya juga bisa dicoba untuk pakai kualitatif supaya nanti teman-teman bisa menggali pengalaman partisipan dengan lebih dalam. Jadi itu sekian penjelasan terkait penelitian aku. Semoga cukup menjelaskan dan semoga bisa memberikan referensi buat teman-teman yang mau melakukan penelitian ya. Oke, sebelum aku tutup, aku cuma mau bilang kalau pada akhirnya kita semua tuh emang akan mengalami perubahan di hidup kita. Dan mungkin juga kehilangan. Tapi yang penting tuh gimana sih cara kita mau menghadapinya. Dan perlu dicatat, gak ada cara yang benar ataupun salah dalam berduka. Setiap orang pasti punya caranya masing-masing. Yang penting gimana kita mau mencari cara yang positif dan paling sesuai sama diri kita. Oke, jadi sekian sharing dari aku. Kurang lebihnya aku mohon maaf dan terima kasih banyak atas perhatiannya selama sesi ini.
Okay, thank you so much, Aysha, for sharing. So I think now it's completed the whole topics about grief, loss, change, and growth. Because now you already got the theory, you got the experience, the life experience, and then the lastly about experience and also about the research. Yeah. So now we're entering the discussion session. All the speaker. Would you mind to sit in the front together with me? Kak Nirasha boleh di sebelah mana? Jauh sekali kita. Over there. And yeah, for those who have questions, please do be active because there's not only a reward of a voucher Alfamart, but also the book of Lost and Found from Kak Nirasha. Gitu ya. Jadi aku harap kalian aktif bertanya. If you have some questions, wondering, or anything that you wanna say or ask, please do. Ya? Ya, doesn't matter if you do it in bahasa. Kalau mau pakai bahasa Indonesia juga nggak apa-apa. We would be happy to translate it for you. Ya? Okay. The first questions. Anybody? Also those online? Okay. Langsung dapat ini ya, voucher beras dari Alfamart. Ya. Minyak goreng. Ini sebenarnya kalian mau apa sih ke sini?
Okay. Aleza dia Atmaja raises hand.
Okay, from Zoom. Ya, Aleza silahkan.
Halo, halo semuanya. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Elisabeth from BINUS B25, and aku baru mengalami duka juga. Kebetulan di tahun lalu, di Agustus tahun lalu, papa aku baru saja meninggal dan mungkin sekarang masih dalam proses ininya ya, proses untuk benar-benar menerima sih. Mungkin aku tuh pengen nanya soal gimana caranya untuk ini sih kayak rejection atau denial itu tuh masih sangat sering muncul gitu sih sebenarnya buat aku sekarang. Dan Mungkin karena aku orangnya juga lumayan tertutup, jadi aku juga belum punya support system yang baik, dan mungkin aku juga mau berterima kasih banget dengan tadi semua speakers untuk hari ini karena itu sangat amat gain knowledge aku juga, dan juga kayak benar-benar membuka pikiran aku untuk banyak hal untuk kedepannya juga. Jadi aku juga mau berterima kasih untuk 3 speakers hari ini, dan mungkin aku juga mau bertanya mengenai tadi sih soal mungkin setelah 1 tahun kayak soal denialnya, kayak oke kayaknya harusnya aku ngelakuin ini sama papaku, kayaknya harusnya aku kayak gini tuh lumayan berat sih sebenarnya, dan mungkin aku kadang ngejudge karena udah setahun gitu, kayak seharusnya tuh lu udah over it gitu, dan mungkin itu sih kayak how do you really deal with it gitu sih sebelumnya. Terima kasih.
Oke, terima kasih Aliza. Kalau boleh tahu ini ditujukan untuk ke speaker yang mana?
Mungkin untuk Miss Katie kali ya. Oh,
Okay, so Dr. Eastman, there's a question for you. This is from one our student named Aliza. She just recently lost her father last year, and she's still in the process of grieving. What she feels strongly now is a lot of rejection and denial. Why this is happening to me? This is already over a year. Why I still feel this feeling? So she also thanking all of you, all the speakers, for sharing the experience. But she also wants to know how to handle this. Why this judgment, this rejection, and the denial, it's still happening while she thinks that it should be over because it's already over a year. Gitu ya Aliza ya, benar ya?
iya betul Kak.
Okay. Dr. Eastman, please.
What I really love, Elisabeth Kübler-Ross used to say, is that every tear is a reflection of how much love. And I lost my father, 20 years ago now? I still cry, will cry forever. Grief does not end, it changes. It ebbs and it flows, it goes up and it goes down, but it never ends. We now know in the research, we call it a continuing bond, where we have a relationship with someone that's that intense and loving and wonderful. It is not expected that we would ever stop grieving. And those of us who've been in the grief world for a really long time understand and have seen over and over and over that grief revisits. And I love what my friend who lost her son taught me. Grief comes when it comes. I welcome it. I experience it. I love it. I experience the pain until it goes away and comes back again. So grief is cyclical. It is not linear. It is not expected to go away after a year. It changes, but it never stops because you'll never stop loving your father. Can someone translate that for me?
Yes. Don't worry. Aliza, do you need translation or you already understand all of it?
I understand. Thank you so much, Dr. Katie.
Bener, nggak perlu diterjemahin?
Iya, nggak perlu.
Okay, sip. Okay. Maybe others can also, do you have any tips to add or anything to say to Aliza?
Well, actually, sebenarnya aku sangat setuju sih sama Dr. Katie Eastman. I think we have that in common where when she said that you will forever feel that feelings because it's about love and it's about continuing bonds. You will never not miss them. So yeah, Aliza, it's okay. I mean, grieving is hard. It's probably one of the hardest thing that you have to do in your life. First of all, so sorry for your loss. Pasti sulit sekali untuk bisa bisa tetap berada di sini, terus tadi berbagi sama kita dan membuka diri gitu bahwa kamu habis kehilangan itu juga bukan hal yang mudah. So give yourself a pat in the back. You are brave, and mungkin tambahannya adalah kamu nggak sendirian, itu aja. Jadi jangan pernah merasa bahwa ini rejection, denial terus-menerus nih sampai kapan ya? Mungkin itu akan selamanya bolak-balik seperti Dr. Katie bilang, tapi you don't have to go through this alone. Itu aja sih tambahan dari aku. Thank you.
Terima kasih. Wow. Okay. Sekali lagi, maybe this session is might be hard for some of you, but we are all here. We are here to listen, and we can also guarantee a privacy if you want to share anything. Itu ya. Okay. Any other questions or story to tell? Yeah? Yeah, of course. Because then we might call you tonight.
That's not what the story is about, fortunately. Okay. Yes, I'd like to ask a question to. I'll be talking in English this time. To Dr. Eastman, or if Nirasha or Aysha would answer as well, I would be very grateful. But yeah, again, I've also everyone here has experienced grief. I guarantee I have experienced grief. I lost my father at a very young age. He didn't die, but he just moved away. At a very young age. I was maybe 4 to 5 years old. And since then, I've lost relationships, I've lost friendships, and etc. And I've always sort of told myself that it's gonna be okay. You just need to big boys toughen up, like something like that. And when hearing these seminars, these posts, all this different information, I've always told myself that it's okay to grieve, that logically I know that it's okay to believe. I think that it's okay to believe. But maybe deep down, what I've internalized is that still you need to toughen up. I've never been able to sort of internalize that message of it's okay to grieve. It's okay to grieve. But I've never been able to hold on to that for a significant amount of time. Maybe I've tried, but the thoughts keep coming back that, oh, you should just it's nothing, this is nothing, it's just you just lost this, it's nothing. But my question is, how do we bridge that gap of sort of how we think that it's okay to grieve versus how we believe deep down, what we've internalized deep down, that maybe I still feel that I do not deserve to be loved or to grieve. How do we sort of bridge that gap? Dr. Eastman or Nirasha or Aysha. Thank you very much.
I'd like to share a story with you, because grief is not just something we can do, we should do. Because if we don't, our bodies pay a price. It physically impacts us when we do not express our emotions. We get physically sick. And the story I want to share with you is an 8-year-old whose mother was dying, and the adults in his life would not tell him. And he started developing stomach aches. And the whole time that his mother was in hospice and nobody would tell him that she was going to die, he got sicker and sicker. Finally, 3 days before she died, they told him he could say goodbye, and he threw up. And after he threw up, he came to me and he said, I guess I threw up my feelings. We need to grieve. We absolutely have that ability for a reason. It's not just social or cultural, it's physical. So what I would encourage you to do is to remind yourself that it's just as important as exercise and eating well. It's part of your health.
Thank you very much, Dr. Eastman. Or Nirasha, or I would like to.
Aysha, nanti kamu kalau mau mungkin menambahkan aja. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. Faral. I'm sorry for what happened to you. Pasti sulit. And I agree with Dr. Katie Eastman, of course. This is also why I didn't grieve well in the past, and I have to pay the price now. But that's a story for another time. So I agree with her. You should grieve. Tapi kemudian pertanyaannya adalah how, right? Your question was how to bridge the gap. because as a child you were not you don't know how to feel your feelings, apalagi sekarang, right? I am going to talk from the point of view of my experience. Just try to acknowledge your feelings, whatever that is. If you're mad with your so-called dad, even though you know he's not with you, well, you acknowledge that, and it's okay. It's okay to be mad to your dad. So you acknowledge whatever that is, and in my experience, I use journaling to express my feelings. And then maybe if you are not into writing, you can do any other than journaling. Maybe you can do art therapy, you can do physical therapy. There's so many things, but you need to express whatever that you have inside. So that's maybe the first step. And when it's becoming a habit, you don't know it, and then the gap is not there anymore, hopefully. So I'm only talking from my experience, so maybe that could help. Aisha mau tambahin, silakan.
Okay, I
All
guess.
right.
Thank you. I think that's an important message that we should grieve. If you feel that, then embrace it. And it's grief. Grief is something that we should do. You can express it with different kind of way, different kind of therapy. Journaling is one of your way. Or maybe if it's necessary, then reach out to the professional, to a psychologist to process it properly. But don't deny it. It's something that we should do, embrace it. Thank you, Faral, for sharing and for asking the questions. Anyone else? Oh, di Zoom dulu atau di Zoom dulu? Oke, boleh. Oke. Zura? Azura.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear my voice pretty well?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Azura?
Can you hear my voice?
Yeah, now it's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Azura. I've been listening to the previous questions and hoping that it would answer my own questions, but there's a few things that has not been answered yet, so I would like to ask my own. So long story short, throughout my life, I've lost a lot of people, but not in terms of death or like that kind of grieving. It's more like a people comes and go type of situation. And I feel like those kind of grieving is hard to overcome because they're still here. Their physical being is still here, but I have not I can't talk to them or I can't gain their attention. And I feel like it's harder for me to grieve those type of situation. And I specifically want to ask Dr. Eastman. I feel like the things you've shared with us has really helped me, but I want to ask you, is it possible for me to actually let go of the past? Especially I went through a lot of things in middle school. I lost a few friends of mine that I thought was really close, and I feel like it affects me in terms of building my own relationship right now to the friends that I have right now. And I feel like it becomes a trust issue with me and not by the others. That came from me. And I want to ask, how can I overcome it to basically gain my trust again to other people? Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Eastman, please.
Sure, that's a wonderful question, and I'm so sorry for your pain in this. One of the parts of grief that people forget that is the most difficult. Sometimes the most difficult things and the hardest grief is not what we have and lose, but what we never got. So in relationships, what we never received from someone is much more difficult, believe it or not, to let go of sometimes, especially when you're younger. So I want to validate every emotion you're feeling. I actually just wrote a book and talked about my own experience of being bullied when I was in middle school. So it does impact us. How to let go of it is to honor it, to validate every emotion attached to every relationship, and to really clarify what it is you wish you had gotten from the relationships that you didn't get, because that's oftentimes more difficult to acknowledge. And I encourage you to do that through journaling, through therapy, through talking to friends, whatever works for you, but acknowledge what you didn't receive from those relationships, because that's where a lot of the pain lies, is expectations of what you wanted and didn't get. And so I encourage you to do that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Eastman. Do you girls have anything to add? No. Okay, I think it's also something that is important to know, that this is another point of view. It's not about something that you lost, but what we've never got, and it's also something to process, to acknowledge, and find a way how to overcome with it. But again, it's okay. This is also, yeah, we almost lost of microphone. Okay, another questions? Ya, boleh mau ke depan? Di depan kamera aja. Jadi Dokter Eastman bisa lihat. Di sini aja ya, Kak. Nggak jauh kok.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Dini, and my question would specifically be for Nirasha. Wanna ask about since you've lost a lot of your family members, when that situation happens and you felt like a victim, how do you cope with that? And what's the turning point in your life during that time that made you be a better person like now? Thank you.
Oh, thank you. It's a very, very personal question, but it's okay. I'm an open book. So the question is, how do I turn myself from feeling being a victim, then overcome everything? I think when I lost my family 2007 until 2014, and then I never really processed that. So during those times, I felt like I was the victim, and I just continue, doing life. I got married and I have 2 kids, and then I still work and everything. But then in late 2017, I went into this, how do you call it? Maybe an episode where I cried for 2 weeks straight for no apparent reason. And I was like, what happened? And then my husband said, maybe you should go to see a psychologist. And then I did. And then I got diagnosed. I got, hold on, let me remember. I got, one of them is prolonged grief disorder. And then I also got minor depression. And then my psychologist said maybe I was, I got like undiagnosed postpartum depression with my second baby. So that happened. And then I went into therapy sessions for like 3 to 6 months. And then maybe that was the turning point. So to answer simply, I went to see a psychologist. I went to see a professional that really helped me. And I started to exercise. I started to, sleep more. And then and then I can think clearly, more clear. And then I started journaling. That's why I then have ideas about writing my book. And then I have ideas about making a support group. So that was actually the turning point, because when I was in depressive state, I couldn't think clearly, and all I think of was I was the victim, and that was it. So when I started to doing better for myself, I tried to, my self-care was to see a psychologist, and she really helped me, and then that was the turning point. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you for the question.
Okay, thanks again for sharing the story. I think it's also something that we could also learn, that even though now you know the theory, the stages, you know the tips and tricks, but if you still feel like you cannot do this alone, you can always find another resources, like you can go for a support group or even to see a professional. Find the best recipe for your own grief, I guess.
Yes.
That's what's all right. Any other questions from Zoom? From Citra. Okay, Citra, silahkan.
All right. So thank you so much for the opportunity. Is my voice clear?
Yes, crystal clear.
All right. Thank you so much. So hello, my name is Chitra. Nice to meet y'all. Thank you so much for the insight regarding grief, loss, growth, change, and community. I feel like as much as this topic is talked about nowadays on the internet compared to the past, I still think it's very relevant in today's time. I really wanted to get Nirasha's opinion on seeking support for coping with grief, but falling into the wrong community. So a good example of this is the Black pill community online. I'm sure that some of the chronically online people here are familiar with the term. So it's basically a community where members believe that success in life is predetermined by birth. So their looks, their wealth, and their connections, those are what you need to succeed in life, especially in romantic relations, in getting romantic relationships. I've watched this interesting video on YouTube discussing this. So Dr. Kanoja, the speaker in the video, explained how people in the Black pill community often vent about their struggles with forming lasting relationships. While they may find validation and acceptance within the group, the environment itself becomes an echo chamber of some sorts for negativity and hate. So while the grief is acknowledged, but there is no space for self-reflection and growth, which can lead to bitterness, stagnation, and so on. So what are your thoughts, Kak Nirasha, regarding this sort of community?
Chitra, yeah? Yes. Thank you,
Yes.
Chitra, for your question. Okay. I don't know how to answer this like straightforward, but I also didn't have any experience in managing community before. So this is like, and I don't study how to manage a community. I just do it by heart, and I learn along the way. But what I believe is that you have to still have an education substance in whatever organization that you have. And my background, even though I work in some places, but my background in my heart will always be a teacher. So I'm a teacher inside, and I know that in any kind of organization, you will always have to have an education substance. So if you don't see that in a community, maybe that's one of the sign. And also, I try to have experts in my organization. That's why I have a clinical psychologist on board, so that any kind of education regarding the mental health, the grief, I will make sure that it's yes, reliable and credible, and it's okay to share that to public. So maybe those are the two things that I will always make sure. And in sharing the ideas, in sharing the education, and in sharing kind of stuff that I talk about every Thursday night, because the meetings we have is on Thursday nights. I will always reflect myself, like what I have done in the past and what can I do more. So maybe if you see that in the community, that's a good sign because I also grow with the community. So I hope I answer your question, but thank you so much. It's actually a reminder for us community so that we can, always make sure that we do good things for people. Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. Dr. Eastman, maybe you also have opinion about this?
I had not heard of that kind of group. My first reaction to it is if a group is not uplifting the hearts and spirits of every member, it's not the right group.
Agreed.
And get out.
Yeah.
That's my first reaction. Because any grief group or group that is intended to provide support for your mental health will lift you. You will be uplifted by it. People will have your back. People will be supportive of each other. They will listen. They'll provide what I call sacred space, an open, safe space. If you feel at all that kind of negativity and toxicity you described, get out. That's my
Good advice. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you. So we have to be critical as well when we look for a support group or a community for that, and find a group that uplifting for us. Yeah.
Yes.
So be critical as well. Okay. Thank you, Chitra. Any other questions? Oh wow, we have hundreds questions in the. Oh, two. Okay. Okay, the first one, wonderful discussion. It is interesting to think of grief and loss as not an obstacle towards growth, but an integral part of change and growth. If I may, I like to know all of your opinions about navigating grief in a society where negative emotions such as sadness, anger, and frustration are seen as a weakness, and seeking support leads to feeling of shame and low self-esteem, which leads to the suppression of this emotion, putting them aside and refusing to feel them, to process them, to show them, to seek help. And this leads to stagnation in life and even hinders the progress in their life. So I think this is a lot of people also experiencing that. Maybe start with Dr. Eastman. Would you like to answer that?
Sure. That is not a new question, unfortunately. It's so culturally embedded in so many places. But I will say, first off, in the field of psychology, there is no such thing as a negative emotion. Every emotion has its reason. Sadness has a reason. Anger has a reason. They are uncomfortable emotions. But in the field of psychology, we never call an emotion a negative emotion. So there's an educational component. When people say to you, it's weakness, they're not understanding that it's a biological component of your wellness. So I think number one, everyone needs to become very well educated about emotions, and the grief experience is a natural, organic, and necessary part of being humanly well. And if you can find your own language to say that, there's plenty of research to tell you what, how, and why. But I think all of us need to commit to that conversation, because this is something that's been said for so many years. I mean, Elisabeth Kübler-Ross was fighting this fight back in the 70s, in the 60s. So we need to stop fighting this fight. We need to recognize that grief is not a bad word and emotions are not negative, ever.
Okay, that's really a great knowledge now that there's no such thing as a negative emotion. What about, what do you think, Aysha? You did some research about grief, and I bet some of your participants also feeling that way. So what do you find out from your research or from your experience?
Mungkin aku coba jawab dari experience kali ya, karena riset aku nggak terlalu mendalami itu. Tapi kalau dari aku sih, betul yang dibilang Dokter Katy, kalau mereka itu nggak paham, karena orang nggak paham. Dan setiap emosi itu kan valid ya, kita tuh nggak bisa menjudge orang. Tapi kalau ada orang yang kayak gitu, itu perlu diedukasi. Dan makanya salah satunya adalah dengan tadi komunitasnya Kak Nirasha, yaitu grief talk ya. Dengan itu orang tuh bisa teredukasi bahwa grief itu atau emosi-emosi yang ditimbulkan dari kedukaan itu bukan sesuatu hal yang buruk gitu. Mungkin negatif tapi bukan hal yang jadi kelemahan kita. Kayak gitu aja sih kurang lebih.
Alright. Kak Nirasha?
Just gonna add like one sentence, like for the one who questioned this. The next time people tell you that, you know, all those so-called negative feelings are for the weak, you tell them that it takes a bravery, you know, it takes a courage to feel those feelings, because it's far more comfortable to just, you know, to just right. It's far more comfortable to just not feel those feelings. It's easier. So tell them that when you are sad and then you cry, when you are angry, when you are feeling those negative emotions, which are not negative, tell them that it is harder. So you are actually brave. So, you know, don't lose hope.
Yeah. And don't look for a fight, because if you tell them like that and you drop the mic and then you go, then I bet there will be a fight between you two. Thank you. All right. I think there's another question in the Zoom. Okay, the second one, right? Yeah. It is necessary in order to process grief that I need to divine where I'm at on grief stages. How to know what stage am I at? Because sometimes it is hard for me to divine what I am feeling at the moment. Sometimes I feel like I've been accept the grief, but in another time I feel like I'm on a depressed stage. How do I know that I really accepted it? I can see that you're nodding, Dr. Eastman. Maybe you already have some answer.
One of the things, Elisabeth Kübler-Ross was my mentor. And here's what I believe she would say to you. I never created this for you to think that it was linear, that it was absolute. What she would say to you is you go all over the place. You can be in denial one day, you can be in acceptance one day, you can flip to anger, it is never one thing or the other, but you flip around at different times. It's not meant to be linear. So many people frustrate themselves by trying to figure out where am I? You are where you are. And nobody fits into nice, neat stages ever. But they're used for you as a guideline and a tool. And she never intended people to stick themselves in boxes or label themselves. She wanted you to only receive support from having a way to think about grief that allowed you to give yourself permission to feel your feelings. But she never wanted anyone to feel like that they fit in a certain place or a certain phase or a certain stage. Does that make sense? Because that's super important, that people very often misunderstand Kübler-Ross's 5 stages.
Yeah. That's also something new that we should learn and emphasize, that the stages is not actually to categorize people where they are, right? But it's just to as a guide, as a guidance, as a tools. And it's very common, very normal if you feel that one day you're on certain stages and on the other day that you jump into a different stages and you're all over the stages, for instance. So it's just a guidance. It doesn't mean that you have to categorize where you are and what you have to be next, right, Dr. Eastman? Yeah, so I hope that's clear for you. Yeah, that's as a tools and to guide you to go to growth, but it's okay to jump from one stages to another.
Yes.
Right.
Not progress. Doesn't go like this.
Yeah,
It's like this.
all over. Are you dancing right now or are you still just joking? All right. Any other questions? Yes. Over there. Let me give you the microphone. Ke depan yuk.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank all the speakers for today's event. I think it's very informative. So I thought I'd start by sharing one of my favorite quote about grief from one of a series I watched called WandaVision. It's called "What is grief? What is grief if not love persevering?" And to me, I think that quote is very important and very meaningful for every people who are struggling with grief and loss right now. So when grief hits you, it really hits you hard. So you always feel the need to reach out and talk about it to process it. So, but there's always thoughts of the other people does not feel the way I feel right now, or they have any other important things to do rather than deal with my grief. So how do we, as a person who are grieving, get rid of those thoughts, those negative thoughts, in order to process our grief? Thank you.
We as human beings are not good at asking for help. We're not good at giving ourselves permission to receive support. It's much easier and unfortunately socially more acceptable to do it on our own. That's what our cultural norm around strength used to look like. But now we've challenged that, and we recognize that asking for help, needing support, is actually what was said earlier, courageous, being fierce, pursuing wellness. And it's so important to change that paradigm, to recognize that regardless of what you are thinking about whether or not somebody wants to help you, ask for it. The worst that can happen is they'll say, I'm busy right now, but I'll help you later. But this story that we make up in our minds that someone is burdened by our grief is oftentimes our own story. It's not true. Usually friends, family want to help, but find out, ask. And if one person can't help you, find somebody else who can.
Yeah. Atka, do you have anything to add? No. Okay, I think that's also quite closely related to our culture. Yeah, some of us feel reluctant to ask for help just because we're scared that if I ask for help, then some people would say no because they're busy. So before you even do that, sometimes the negative thoughts already in our head. But like Dr. Eastman said, just ask. The worst thing you could get as the answer is, I'm not available now, but I'll come back to you later. And that's normal and that's okay. Not just don't stop asking for help. I hope that's up lifting you up, huh? Okay. Thank you for the questions. Anyone else? Any other? Oh, we have 4 already. Tiara. Hello,
Yes.
Tiara.
Hi, Kavara. Hello, everyone. So this question is a bit personal, but before that, I'd like to thank you to bring up this topic of loss because I personally haven't been exposed to a lot of grief since I was a kid. So this is a bit of a personal story. So I'm someone who doesn't grow up with a lot of grief. I've only been exposed to grief back in 2018 when I was in high school. So since then, there was a lot of grief that I wasn't really prepared for. So since 2019, I lost my cousin, my grandfather, my uncle, and just last week, I lost my grandmother. And I feel like I haven't really understand grief in a way that I should because I didn't really cry as much as, I feel like I am close with them, but I didn't really cry that much. So I think that it really makes me sad because I didn't cry as much because I feel like there was a bond. So I'm scared that when it comes again, rather than crying, I'd go a bit numb or isolate myself in such ways. And in general, I just have a fear with grief, especially with the ones I love so dearly. And the thought of losing them really makes me anxious and makes my heart race. So my question is that can we really prepare ourselves to be exposed to sudden loss in life? Because some of us are really accustomed to the grief that we have in our life. Yeah. So that's the question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Tiara. Dr. Eastman, please.
One of the reasons I wanted to normalize grief as something that happens throughout our lives every day is because when we think of it that way, we develop tools that help us when the big grief happens. And I'm so sorry for the loss of your grandmother. And in all likelihood, you're still in shock. Shock is something that lasts for a while when someone dies, and we forget that. And we think that we're supposed to be crying or we're supposed to be doing this or that. And reality is that you may not be right now. You may later. You may not. Everybody is different. But I encourage you to take away the shoulds, all the rules that say this is the way that I should be grieving, and just simply be with your own experience. Remember her, remember the people you've lost, write stories about them, sit and recall favorite things, favorite thoughts, write them down, make them into art, do things that bring them back into your life. But I really encourage you not to tell yourself that you should be anything, especially so soon. It hasn't been that long. And grief it builds on grief. So a loss begets loss, which means every time we have a loss, we remember the losses before, and they build on each other. So I really want you to remember that you're probably in some ways protecting yourself because there's a part of the other losses that's coming up. And that's okay. It's all okay. You're okay.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Eastman.
Thank you,
Tiara,
Doctor.
again,
Yeah,
we're
thank
very
you,
sorry
Doctor.
for your loss. Yeah. I hope, what Dr. Eastman said could help you to overcome your anxiety as well. Okay. Any more questions in the Zoom or here?
Maybe I will also share my experience.
Sure.
Brief. So, my father also died not too long ago, and like all of us, he was a flawed man. During my time growing up, whenever I feel sad or down, whenever things get rough because my family was not that well off, he always promised me something. He always promised me, "I'll buy you a motorbike. I'll buy you something." He never bought me that. I think that it was his way of trying to console me. The only way that he knows that I will do it with the promise of material gain that you might have if you not sad anymore. So he keep doing that. At first, I was disappointed because I never get what he promised. But growing up, I feel that it was his way of comforting me. So yeah. When he died, it's true what you said, Dr. Katie, that grief is also about what we cannot receive by our loss. And I kept a mental note of everything that he promised me, from the ridiculous one to the something that's just more achievable, but he never get me anyway. And there I closed the book. I mentally closed the book and said that it's fine that you don't have to fulfill all of this anymore. I understand. And I don't know if I ever grieve or not, because when the moment that my father died, I've never really cried. I feel like I've been grieving him for a long time before he died. He was sick with stroke and heart problem due to over use of smoking and unhealthy lifestyle overall. So is it possible, doctor, that I've been doing pre-grief, like I've been grieving for a long time before the death actually happened, and when it happened, I just it's done. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And again, we're very sorry for your loss, Gary. And we are all here if you need any kind of support. Thank you. Anybody else? wants to ask questions? No? One more. Okay. Do you mind going, standing here?
Sebenarnya saya enggak ada beberapa pertanyaan, tapi aku juga pengen nanya ini sebenarnya. Ayahku meninggal 8 tahun yang lalu. Lalu di semester 2 atau 3, teman dekat kuliahku meninggal. Tiba-tiba, dan sekarang teman yang lain masih ada. Dan di keluarga, orang tua saya sisa mama saya. Dan mama saya juga sudah sakit-sakitan, sering bolak-balik ke rumah sakit karena harus cuci darah 2 minggu sekali, seminggu 2 kali. Kadang juga suka terapi ke rumah sakit karena baru-baru ini jatuh dari bangku dan kena saraf kejepit. Kadang kalau misalkan aku nggak ngantar mama ke rumah sakit, aku dirasa bersalah karena aku ngeliat sendiri proses gimana ayah aku waktu itu. Sorry. Ya aku ngeliat gimana proses waktu ayahku meninggal, terus gimana karena posisinya di situ cuma ada aku sama mamaku, kakakku yang lain satu tinggalnya jauh karena sudah berkeluarga, yang 2 lagi kerja, jadi sisaku di situ. Aku awalnya nggak tahu kalau misalkan ayahku udah sakaratul. Mamaku juga cuma bilang itu cekukan biasa. Jadi di situ aku ngerasa pas malamnya aku merasa bersalah karena aku nggak tahu kalau ternyata beliau sedang sakaratul. Jadi sekarang aku juga cuma punya mama di rumah. Sebisa mungkin aku quality time sama mama. Kadang kalaupun di rumah aku suka cerita hal-hal kecil apapun itu yang aku jalani, aku cerita ke mama dari masalah teman, terus percintaan atau yang lain aku cerita ke mama. Sampai pada suatu saat aku tanya ke mama, mama suka iri gak sih ngelihat teman mama yang lain masih ada suami kayak gitu. Mamaku bilang, mama enggak, tapi aku tahu di dalam hatinya pasti ada rasa kesepian yang mendalam karena mama sudah lama bersama ayahku. Jadi pertanyaanku adalah how to deal it with rasa bersalahku karena kalau aku nggak ngantar mama, aku merasa kayak bersalah banget, sedih. Terus jadi sebisa mungkin aku quality time sama mama sih, Kak. Sekian, terima kasih.
Alright. Terima kasih banyak. Thank you for sharing this story. No, I think it's hard for me to translate because now I think the whole room is full of emotion. So I know this is not easy for you, but you've been brave. Tepuk tangan dulu, dia sudah berani cerita. All right. So her story was her father died 8 years ago, and it was only her and her mom was there, and she didn't know that he was in the process of dying, and she felt guilty because she didn't know that he was almost died. And then on the third or second semester, she also lost one of her close friends during her study here, and that's also impact your emotion. And now your mom is also being very sick that she has to come back to hospital every 2 weeks. And if you're not able to bring her to the hospital, and then again you feel guilty. So the question is how to deal with the feeling of guilty that you often feel because of what happened since your father died, your friends died, and now your mother is being sick. Maybe Dr. Eastman?
My heart goes out to her. Please tell her that. I truly believe in grief overload. There are times when people have so much loss that loss compounds loss, compounds loss, and it becomes almost impossible to cope. And that is important because when we feel like we have to cope, we have to do it. We want to do it because we love our loved ones and we want to rise to the occasion. But we're human and we have capabilities and we have endpoints. And what I heard her say is guilt, 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 and guilt. And guilt destroys compassion. I'm going to say that again because I really believe that. But guilt destroys compassion. It takes away our capability of loving because we're so caught up in feeling like we're not enough that we forget that what we need to be is there and loving and present. And I really encourage her to remind herself that her bringing her loving self to the best of her ability is all she can do. And that's a lot.
Do you want mau aku translate? Oke, jadi thank you Dr. Eastman. I'm going to translate this for her. Jadi menurut Dr. Eastman, seringkali kita merasa bahwa ya tadi ada kesedihan di dalam kesedihan di dalam kesedihan dan sebagainya. Jadi kita merasa rasa bersalah itu adalah perasaan yang wajar dan tapi tidak wajar kalau kita terperangkap dalam perasaan bersalah itu gitu ya. Karena menurut dia perasaan bersalah menghancurkan compassion tuh belas kasih untuk diri sendiri, welas kasih. Jadi perasaan bersalah justru bikin kamu nggak melihat apa yang sebenarnya ada di sekitar kamu dan bagaimana sebenarnya berharganya diri kamu gitu. Jadi sebenarnya itu perasaan yang wajar, tapi yang tadi Dr. Eastman juga bilang adalah yang paling bisa kamu lakukan adalah welas kasih terhadap diri kamu sendiri supaya kamu bisa keluar dari lingkaran yang tadi perasaan bersalah itu. Kurang lebih tadi begitu. Dari Kak Nirasha atau Aysha ada yang mau ditambahkan?
Jadi kalau dari aku mungkin aku juga jawab dari pengalaman aku ya. Karena wajar kalau kita ngerasa bersalah, apalagi di saat orang itu sekarat dan kita ngerasa kayak kita nggak bisa ngelakuin apapun gitu kan. Tapi itu hal yang wajar dan benar yang dibilang Dokter Katy, kalau kita tuh jangan sampai terperangkap dengan rasa bersalah itu. Yang penting kita tuh bisa lebih menghargai hidup kita sekarang karena aku yakin almarhum papa kamu, teman kamu dan orang di sekitar kamu juga pasti akan lebih bahagia kalau kamu merelakan mereka dan nggak terperangkap dengan rasa bersalah itu. Jadi coba belajar menghargai hidup dan menghargai momen sama almarhum.
Sorry, tadi aku terlambat. Namamu siapa? Syarah. Oke. Syarah, terima kasih sudah berbagi. Kayaknya kita semua di sini ikut merasakan apa yang kamu rasakan. Sekali lagi terima kasih. Pasti sulit untuk kamu bisa cerita dan itu butuhkan keberanian. Aku hanya menambahkan aja bahwa setuju dengan Dr. Katie Eastman dan Aysha bahwa adalah hal yang wajar untuk merasa bersalah. Bahkan aku sering bilang kalau di pertemuan kita tuh kehilangan, duka, dan perasaan bersalah tuh kayak satu paket gitu. Jadi itu pasti terjadi. Dan ketika memahami itu, bahwa itu adalah hal yang wajar ketika kita kehilangan, akan lebih mudah untuk menerima bahwa oke, ini wajar, and then move on gitu. Move on di sini maksudnya bukannya kita lupakan, enggak, tapi ya udah, ini memang adalah proses yang harus dijalani. Semua orang yang kehilangan akan merasakan perasaan bersalah. Kenapa? Karena pada dasarnya kita sebagai manusia ingin melakukan yang terbaik untuk orang yang kita sayang. Pasti. Sampai kapanpun orangnya udah nggak ada, kita masih tetap ingin melakukan yang terbaik. Jadi what if itu selalu ada. Kenapa aku nggak gini, kenapa aku nggak gitu, itu akan selalu ada selamanya. Selama si duka itu ada. Jadi kalau misalnya memang itu dipahami bahwa itu wajar dan akan selamanya ada, ya udah kita ringan aja ketika rasa bersalah itu datang. Oh ya udah, ini adalah bagian dari duka. Aku pun sampai sekarang juga masih gitu, aduh seandainya bisa ini, seandainya bisa itu. Tapi aku tidak mau berputar di situ karena ya itu memang seperti duka, datang kemudian pergi, datang kemudian pergi. Kita terima aja, nanti dia pergi lagi gitu. Semoga bisa membantu. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih udah sharing. Oke, teman-teman ada lagi yang mau bercerita, mau bertanya? Gary?
Yes. Oh, Gary. Okay.
Oke. Ya? Did you say anything, Dr. Eastman, or?
I thought you were calling me, but you were calling Gary.
Okay. All right. If there's no more questions, maybe each of you, the speaker, can give some conclusion before we close the session. Maybe start with you, Kak Nirasha.
Oke, thank you. Thank you so much. Terima kasih teman-teman yang hadir hari ini, Sabtu pagi, yang mungkin bisa santai-santai, but you are here, you want to learn something, so give a round of applause for yourself. Dan terima kasih juga buat teman-teman yang hadir di Zoom, ada 2.000, enggak ya, 200. Terima kasih teman-teman yang ada di Zoom, you guys are amazing. Thank you for staying sampai jam 11 nih, hampir setengah 12. Mungkin terakhir dari aku adalah yang juga sudah aku share sebelumnya, bahwa duka itu adalah bagian dari hidup gitu. Ketika kita hidup, kita punya koneksi dengan orang lain, kemungkinan besar akan kehilangan orang itu. So it's just part of life. It's hard. It's a hard part of life. Mungkin itu ya. Tapi nggak apa-apa. Dari semua hal yang kita pelajari, 5 stages itu benar-benar bisa menjadi pegangan kita kok gitu. Bahwa berpuluh-puluh tahun yang lalu teori ini ada dan sampai sekarang masih bisa dipraktekkan, itu berarti memang ini bisa menjadi pegangan. Cuman mungkin tadi seperti Dr. Eastman bilang bahwa ini tidak linear, jadi tidak 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Tidak semua orang harus mengalami semuanya, dan yang paling gak enak adalah bisa ruwet tuh, bolak-balik. And that's normal and that's okay. And the last thing, you don't have to go through that alone. No. Find somebody that can support you. Cari orang yang memang bisa menemanimu, yang tidak ngejudge, yang bisa kasih dukungan, dan ya memang itu sih sebenarnya yang kita butuhkan karena untuk kita bisa menuju ke sana. Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Kak Nirasha. Dari Aysha?
Sebelumnya sama makasih juga ya teman-teman udah hadir di sesi sharing ini. Karena ini weekend pasti mager ya. Nah, sebelumnya kayak yang udah dibilang, kalau aku bilang tadi perubahan itu udah jadi bagian dari kehidupan kita pastinya, dan kayaknya di hidup kita tuh kehilangan satu orang atau barang tuh udah hal yang lumrah ya. Tapi makanya penting buat kita lepas dari rasa bersalah atau mungkin rasa sedih yang terus-terusan kayak supaya nanti nggak berkepanjangan gitu dukanya. Untuk dukanya sendiri tuh kalau teman-teman masih ngerasa kayak aduh aku kangen nangis, it's okay karena emang kayak gitu. Aku pun udah 4 tahun juga kayak gitu. Mungkin tiba-tiba nangis, tapi makanya kita harus belajar buat lebih menghargai hidup kita saat ini karena apa yang perlu kita jalanin itu yang penting sekarang dan pastinya mungkin juga bisa didedikasikan untuk orang-orang yang berharga buat kita yang udah pergi lebih dulu atau kita juga bisa lebih close, lebih dekat lagi sama orang-orang di sekitar kita, lebih menghargai lingkungan kita saat ini kayak gitu.
Terima kasih luar biasa. Okay, last but not least, Dr. Eastman, would you like to say the conclusion or your final words? Yeah.
Well, the first thing I want to say is that my heart has been with you, even though I'm virtual. I feel the feels, is what we say here, of all of the pain in that room. And I want you to know that I honor that very much. I take that very seriously into my heart. And I wish all of you that as you go through your lives, that when loss comes, which it will, when change arises, which it will, that you will honor yourselves with compassion and love and allow your feelings, your mind, your beliefs, your full experiences of your grief to teach you how to live a better life. Because I do believe that we are given an opportunity when we grieve and are vulnerable, if we listen to our heart's voice, to our tears, through our tears, to our pain, that there's a purpose underneath there that we can discover that will make us stronger, better, wiser, more giving, and more compassionate. And that's what I hope for everyone there. And were I there, I would give you one big, huge collective hug.
Okay, before we close the session, I would like again to thank you for our wonderful 3 speakers for sharing your theory, your experience. It might not be easy for some of you, but thank you. And also thanks to you guys for asking questions, for being attentive, and for sharing your experience, even sharing some tears. If I may, to remind you, I think we learned a lot from this uplifting session. It's not only for us, but as a psychologist, as a human, now we know, and we also now know how to help other people who are experiencing grief. So keep that in mind, be hopeful, be thoughtful, and grow. Thank you again for your attention. I'll give it back to you as the MC. Thank you, Dr. Eastman. Thank you, Pak Nirasha. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Farah, for moderating this today's session. You know, all this deep talk about emotion and grief making me very hungry. Is anyone else feel the same way? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So yes, once again. Thank you, Kafara, as Dr. Farah as the moderator of today's session. Once again, thank you all to our brilliant speakers, Dr. Eastman, Nirasha, Aysha, for sharing their wisdom with us today. And thank you to you all as well for sharing your story, for sharing your questions with all of us today. So everyone, please, as a form of appreciation, let's give a round of applause. Okay, now, once again, I would like to thank Alpha Gift for sponsoring today's event, as without their contribution, this event would not be possible. So, is our form of collaboration. We will now show a short video teaser from Alpha Gift that will be shared on the screen.
Kita udah habis. Maksudnya apa belum nge-restock? Ya karena kalian nggak di semua tempat ada. Gak gampang.
Handphone, sini phone. Bukain produk khusus online-nya Alpha Gift.
Hah? Di Alpha Gift ada produk khusus online?
Kecuali ongkir.
Alpha Gift, produk khusus online-nya macam-macam ada, kecuali ongkir.
Okay, that was it. Yeah, definitely not helping me with my my cravings right now. Anyway, yes. So moving on. Next, we'll be handing out books as promised before from Kak Nirasha. Her book title. What is the book title? Her book titled Lost and Found. So Kak Nirasha, please once again, could you come up to the stage here? Yeah. Okay, so yes, Kak Nirasha will be handing out her book to three lucky winners from those who give out questions today. So first of all, okay. First off is Putih Zahra Naila. Could you please come to the stage? And the second person is Rahmadira Febi. Could you please come up? And lastly, but of course not least, we have Syarah Fadilah. Could you please come up? Okay, so my question, yes, for my question answer, bring them here on the stage. For we will be also giving out Alpha gift vouchers from our sponsor. Yes, for those of you who asked, who attended via Zoom, you will also be giving out Alpha gift vouchers. You'll be contacted soon by event staff. Next, as one more form of appreciation, we'll be handing out souvenirs and certificate for speakers, including e-certificate for Dr. Eastman. So, Kak Nirasha, Kak Aysha, could you please come up once again? Yes, so the handing out of souvenirs and certificates will be done by Kak Geri and Dr. Esther. Oke, yes, udah siap panitia? Sambil foto aja, Bu.
Oh, oke.
Oke.
Oh, of course. Soalnya saya sangat
Gimana? Bisa nggak?
sebentar. Kak Nirasha, Aysha, and also Dr. Kathy Eastman, on behalf of Psychology Department, I would like to express our gratitude and also this session is so touching, so fruitful, and I believe you can have your own meaning from this session, and you can express your grief. You can enjoy your changes, be growing and be happy. Thank you. Kak Nirasha, thank you very much.
Okay, documentation staff, could you please take a photo? Kenapa? Ya.
Belum?
Iya.
Ada lagi?
Ada lagi? Semua bisa lagi tuh sama Kak Giri?
Sure, thank you very much. I know. Is it the past moment when you done your examination? I mean your skripsi. Saya tahu buat Aisyah nggak mudah karena kan di tengah-tengah perjalanan skripsinya nggak cuma di tengah-tengah ya. Sebenarnya kan Karani kan juga udah sakit ya.
Dari apa nih?
Cerita aja itu gimana sih? Kamu cukup struggling ya sebenarnya gitu ya.
Iya, jadi waktu awal skripsi itu sebenarnya ternyata beliau emang udah sakit dan kebetulan juga beliau nggak ini ya masih mau membimbing saya untungnya alhamdulillah dan saya benar-benar berterima kasih sama beliau karena sampai akhir tuh saya benar-benar dibantuin semaksimal mungkin sebisa beliau gitu. Kasih juga buat Kak Farah sama Bu Esther udah bantu backup selama ini. Ya.
Kami yang sangat terima kasih karena kamu tidak complaining. Ya, tidak mengeluh aja buat saya sebagai kajur itu udah sangat luar biasa. Terus ditambah lagi kamu mau sharing gitu ya. Saya percaya kamu pasti jadi punya pengalaman yang sangat kaya ya. Karena semua pengalaman hidup ini ya, jangan ditolak pengalaman hidup. Thank you very much Aysha for today's session ya. Thank you.
Boleh di
Saya mau nanya.
Okay, as we've done documentation with the speakers, now we'll be moving on to documentation with the participants online. So attendees online, if you may, could you please turn on your camera and let's take a photo together, all right? Ya, ditunggu ya untuk yang online, untuk menyalakan kamera. Udah keluar kan? Udah keluar kan?
Oh ya, nggak ada.
Oh, okay. Yes, Dr. Eastman, if you're still present, could you also perhaps turn on your camera? Is it?
Kayaknya udah nggak ada.
Ya, oh. Ya. Oke. Oke, sepertinya Dr. Eastman sudah keluar ya. Oke, ya. Oke, sudah menyalakan kamera semua? Ya. Kita mulai dengan slide pertama dulu untuk panitia. Dipersilakan untuk mengambil screenshot aba-aba dari saya. 1, 2, 3. Sudah? Lanjut ke halaman kedua. Boleh? Oh, cuma satu halaman. Enggak, satu. Cuma satu halaman ya atau enggak? Gak ada yang buka lagi, oke. Oke. Oke, cukup. Terima kasih.
Aja di musiknya masing-masing.
Ya, betul.
Boleh ya, jadi teman-teman kita duduk aja. Kalau teman-teman mau pindah agak ke depan, biar yang di belakang tuh nggak kecil-kecil jatuhnya. Sini aja. Hanya buat difoto.
Sauni ah, maju nih.
Itu tasnya Pak.
Ya, oh. Di mana ya, Bang?
Jangan berdiri, cari belakang. Kalian pindah duduk aja deh.
Apakah sudah siap? Sudah. Oke. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2. Tadi gantian. Iya. Dia pegang kamera.
Rambut gue rapi nggak? Okay. Unfortunately, do not leave yet, my fellow participants. Yes, yes. Ya, tunggu dulu. Okay, yeah. Unfortunately, this concludes this first session. I'm sure you are all very invested in today's topic. Well, good news. As mentioned on the poster, and I'm sure if as you've seen, we still have 2 other sessions that you can join after this. First off is the industry sharing session right here, right? Right here, yes. And the postgraduate sharing, which is held in room 210. Yes, you can go. You can stay here for the next session, or you can go to room 210. Once again, thank you all for attending today's session. I remind you to fill in the evaluation form that will be, I assume, will be shown here. Yes, yeah. So everyone before leaving, please, everyone please before leaving, fill in the evaluation form. After you've filled in the evaluation form, you may leave the room, or you can stick around if you want to join in the next session. Signing off for today, my name has been Falagi Firmansyah. Thank you very much. Signing off.
Kak, ini berarti di stop recording aja. Oh iya, tadi aku keluar karena anakku telepon nomor presentasi ya gitu-gitu.